I'm going to start out with a 30-second exercise. First, try to count the number of times that 5 appears. So take a moment. This takes most people 20 seconds to answer, and most of the time their answers are incorrect. Now let's try it a different way. Count the number of 5s now. So very quickly, we can see that there are 12 5s. The second presentation of information capitalized on human cognition. Humans see contrast very well. So if we present that information to our audience in a way that lets their brains recognize important information first, we're maximizing the effectiveness of this exchange of information. And that's what Tableau software enables you to do, see and understand your information. At Tableau, accountants and analysts use modern visualization techniques on top of their governed, controlled ledgers to work faster than they could with conventional financial reports. What I'd like to do in this recording is walk through Tableau Finance examples and point you to the resources to get you working with these visualizations immediately. As your colleagues using Tableau will likely tell you, these dashboards are really fast and easy to create or to save as your own. So if you see something that you like, or if you see something on which you'd like to iterate, download Tableau, use the free how-to videos, and snap this on to your own data. To our right will be the sequence of visualizations that we'll evaluate. If one of these is of special interest to you, just jump directly to that one, save you some time. We'll start out with the one that most appealed to me, and that's accounts receivable aging. I used to specialize in this area with a different software company, and the way that we would approach AR aging and collections was with multiple cross-tabular reports. So at that time, we would just run one report after the other to jump to different levels of granularity. The trouble was we'd lose the big picture insight, we'd lose context, and we'd waste a bunch of time jumping from one report to the next. To boot, if we needed a special report with the fields aligned a certain way, we'd have to bounce that request off of a report developer. So now, with a Tableau visualization of this information, we use this to guide our workflow, to work faster, and to generate more insights about where we need to be cautious about extending credit. So let's say that we're a collection specialist for a particular region, like Asia. We can just click on China and see which customers are delinquent. Beyond that, we can see how much do they owe us, and what was the invoice number, or what were the invoice numbers on which they are delinquent. So from here, I can link out with a hyperlink to my invoice system and contact that customer about that invoice or maybe other invoices, or I can email them directly from this dashboard with a PDF of their invoice. From a different perspective, if you weren't responsible for just a region, but all customers, if you just select that customer, all other regions of this dashboard are updated. Likewise, if we get the okay from our boss to clear out all the old stuff like 90 days and older, maybe we can collect it or we can write it off. We can just focus on our aging buckets. So we just select that bucket we're interested in, and we see which invoices we need to focus on. Let's pivot now to a really neat travel dashboard that our team's created. So in this one, we're taking all the travel-related data and boiling it down to one dashboard. So like most of our dashboards, we've made this interactive with simple action filters. So what this does is does not sacrifice real estate on the dashboard for filters or making the components of the dashboard filters themselves. So looking at this, we see that air travel is usually the largest expense, and this graph is clearly indicating that to us. But let's dig into some details about that. We notice that when we select air, Airline 70 is a vendor with whom we're spending a lot of money. We look at the average flight cost there and see that it's well above the average flight cost from Airline 14. So that's a little bit disconcerting. So let's put a pin in that and come back to it later. For now, let's dig in more on airline spend. So here we want to understand overspend. This is the amount additional travelers pay compared to the lowest logical per route. So sometimes overspend is okay, like if the route had 2 layovers and cost $5 less than the direct flight, you'd say okay on the direct flight. But as a financial professional, you'd like to look for ways for the business to save money. So you want to take a look at this overspend at an aggregate level and then dig in where necessary and point out some areas for improvement. So proportionately, there's the largest overspend in Asia, but in gross terms, we're doling out nearly $500,000 in the US alone on overspend. So let's zoom in on the US. There's Airline 70 again. Our travelers overspend by 18% on this airline compared to others. So with this knowledge at hand, maybe we can enforce a stricter policy on Airline 70's flight options for our travelers. We could contact the Agencia or whoever our travel agency is and have them implement this policy while showing them the data that backs up our decision to do so. So throughout the rest of this workbook, and a workbook is just basically a book containing multiple views, so throughout this workbook we have detailed analysis for other areas of travel, so like air routes, car rentals, hotel rates, and at the end we have a story about how to optimize the cost of overnight stays. So this is an interesting point to sit on for a second. In Tableau you can sequence out the steps in a presentation that you'd like to give. So these story points really help you tell your story, help you stay organized. So we can have like chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on and so forth, and then at the end you wrap up with a call to action, again based on the data. The next dashboard addresses purchasing and a little bit of accounts payable. So your purchasing department, what if you wanted to know how they're doing? Who are they creating POs for or with? What vendors? Maybe your purchasing team can use the data here to have a fact-based negotiation with your vendors. Often high dollar amount purchase orders aren't being done that often, but with low dollar POs you'll likely have high PO counts. So this dashboard would show something like that. So here's that same dashboard presented in a more visual way, a more Tableau-centric way. Some information is much more apparent this way. There's clearly one vendor with whom we spend a lot more money than others. From here you can slice up this information any way that you want. Maybe you look at it by cuts of department or a subsidiary. That's all simple to do in Tableau. In this case we're looking at it by subsidiary. In the top right you can see the subs collectively over time. We're adding more POs as we get bigger, and we need more stuff to help us continue to grow. And then wedged in the middle there are some metrics that we created that will help in a conversation with that vendor when you're negotiating new terms. So you can say, hey, vendor X, you give us a 5% discount. On average, we get a discount of about 9.3% from our other vendors. Can you work with us to get your organization in line with most of our vendors? So this is a really strong condensed view that will help you work faster when you analyze your purchasing data. So let's transition now to some powerful revenue visualizations. So these really attract the attention of most executives. Tableau calls this bird's eye internally. It gives executives the ability to see and interact with revenue projections. So there's some historical revenue information that's listed at the top left, and then the current quarter information is on the top right and the middle left. So what's special about this visualization is that it's bringing together information from both the CRM system, in our case Salesforce, with GL information that's in our ERP system. So instead of forcing the user to accept the standard Salesforce conversion ratio of revenue to pipeline, we give them some flexibility here. So like what if instead of choosing like the 45% opportunity closure rate in the pipeline, we close 50%. So you can see the immediate impact of that change and then share this information with your peers to drive change in the business. Okay, so this next one looks at what expected bookings are and how we're comparing to our quota for every day in the period to see if we're going to meet or exceed 100% at the end of the period. And this compares to past quarters and past periods that are similar to this current period. Here's that same information, but what we've done is normalized all the periods. So we can see now clearly 180 days out, how does this quarter compare to the quarter before, the year before, and so on. So are we on the same trajectory to hit quota as we were in the previous periods? If not, raise a red flag to our sales executives to ratchet up the sales execution. So here's a cohort analysis where we'd want to check the stickiness of our product. Are customers from prior years sticking around and buying more? Let's hope so. That means that we're delivering value to those customers. We're proving out that value. So let's look at the red bar there. 2007 customers, thankfully, have continued to purchase over time. So maybe you've done some cohort analysis before and you've seen something like this type of visualization, but have you ever checked out something like this? So this is a ratio of the initial purchase the customer had to their lifetime purchases with us. So with Tableau's business model, a land and expand business model where Tableau gets in a few desktops and then down the road they invest in a server, we would often see that the ratio would be really high in early years of Tableau. But as the data shows, this is changing. Customers are making larger first-time purchases as they're trying to get the software into as many hands of knowledge workers as they can right out of the gates. So imagine this as a crosstab with hundreds of ratios. It would be tough to see a clear pattern, but you can see with the arrow that I pointed out there was a real drop-off in that 1 year to the next. So that's telling us that customers are investing a lot initially in the product, and then subsequently they're still investing in the product because it's a positive ratio, but it's not as drastic as it was in the early years. So this is a visualization that you've likely seen before. It's just quarterly bookings of revenue. Also included here is quota. So quota reference lines are those little red lines up there. But what this visualization doesn't tell us is any additional level of granularity. So we can just pivot this visualization and plug in month within that quarter, so whether it's first, second, or third month, and it's a little bit enlightening. We can see that in the last month of every quarter we close the most amount of revenue. So this might help you and your sales executives set up your sales strategy. So I'm running long on time here, so let's quickly touch on visualizations to help you enforce corporate governance standards. So first we have a journal entry audit visualization. Publicly traded companies operating under SOX compliance should have different people approving transactions than creating them. So you can quickly see in the graph below that almost no transactions are created and approved by the same person. The only exceptions are voided transactions. So compare this to eyeballing a detailed transaction log. No thanks, I would prefer, and most people would prefer, this visual cue. And this visualization is a scorecard that shows summary and control level detail about compliance and risk. So it's a quick visual cue and it initiates immediate or no action. So another idea here, when you start getting a lot of different visualizations, you want to stay organized. Tableau server helps you stay organized really well. We just created another visualization here that's a table of contents that helps you stay organized a little bit better. And it just has finance-related reports in a table of contents, and when you select one of them, it will just jump to that visualization directly within the screen. So you don't lose sight of your other visualizations within finance on your left-hand side there. As far as additional resources are concerned, there are 3 that I have picked out. One is Tableau Customer Conference 2015, Mike Crook's session, How Tableau Finance Makes Sense of Data. That's what I used. I just boiled down his content into this quick video. But if you want to see his thorough video, I would suggest to do that. He goes into much more detail than I do. Beyond that, you can come to our Tableau.com page, go to Training and Tutorials, and then On-Demand Training to get whatever training you need. And this is all free. So if I want to see, how do I do mapping? Here's a bunch of quick videos that are like from 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes 7 minutes long, on how to do that stuff. And then beyond that, you can go to Solutions within Tableau.com, Departments, and you can see right off the bat we have CFO dashboards, and there are a couple of examples here that are beyond what I presented in my presentation. One concern that I hear from financial executives once in a while is, well, how easy is this application to use? And the answer is, it's real simple, so I want to demonstrate that to you real quickly. So on the left here, you just connect to your data source, and I'll grab the data source I want to work with. In this case, it's in Excel, but it could be directly in a database. And I just grab the table I want to work with, and then I come over and start just dragging and dropping this stuff in. So I see state over here, it has a globe next to it. I just double select that. That's great, it creates a map for me that quickly. And maybe I want to see the magnitude of my sales on these marks. In California, yeah, right away they have a lot of sales. I can also use the show me thing up here, which is a great guide for new users to select a different type of map. So I'm going to run with that one right there. And then we'll create another sheet real quickly. So I'll just say, all right, well, give me, I don't know, subcategory and sales also. I'll use show me again, and we'll just create a bar chart, and I'll sort it. Okay, so now I've got these 2 components. I want to pull them together into one dashboard, so that's a real simple process. I just drag them into where I want them. And now, if I want to make any one of these components in my dashboard a filter, I can just select that and say, all right, well, show me what Pennsylvania's sales are for all those subcategories. So that's how simple it can be to work with Tableau. Don't be intimidated by a new piece of visualization software. This is super easy to use.